The advantage of Maritime Security was it was like a slow car chase. You know, if the skiff was on the horizon, it was going to take them 30 minutes or whatever. So I got the binoculars and I looked through it, went, could see the skiff, and it was coming straight towards like a torpedo. And you were like, wow, okay. So they started shooting at us, Somalians. You could hear rounds hitting all over the superstructure, and we had some smoke flares, so we smoked the bridge out. So the Mayday goes out, Mayday, Mayday, pirate attack, pirate attack. Within a few minutes, you could hear him shooting, trying to get through the bridge door.
And if in minutes?
In minutes, yeah. And we were like, oh, shit, that was quick.
How did they get through the razor wire?
Yeah. This lady answered the phone, Jenny, who was in the ops office. She said, hello? And I went, hiya, Jenny, it's Wayne. She said, oh, hiya, Wayne, you all right? I went, yeah, I'm good. She said, oh, I didn't know you had a sat phone. I said, we've got pirates on board. She went, fuck, you what? You what? I said, hey, calm down. The military, for me, has been an important part of my life. My adult life. I don't regret any part of it. I've loved every minute of it.
And you've been in for over 20 years, right?
Yeah. The British Army's got a fantastic reputation as globally, and you have to look at yourself, and you always set yourself to that standard of people before, if you know what I mean. Obviously, it's been tough times and happy times, and yeah, the camaraderie you've got with the guys, the banter that you had, very special people that you meet and work with, loads of laughter along the way. Good times, there's been bad times. We've lost friends through campaigns, and they're still remembered. And
thank you so much for inviting me to your business.
You're very welcome. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's very good to meet you. You've just shown me a few bits. Tell us about your business.
Okay, so I founded Easy Chop back in 2013.
Yeah.
And it was after doing the maritime security element of my life, I saw the need to actually provide an IKEA flat pack type system that I could deliver to a vessel. They could implement and actually provide themselves with some security. Yeah, so we supply these equipments here. It's all designed to deny access into the superstructure.
Yes.
So if that wasn't there, and this is what happened on when we were boarded, they smashed this window and reached down and undid the handle.
Yes.
So the equipment we do here is all designed to be easily fitted to an existing door and will prevent any intruder getting in.
Yes, you've got here that you put across.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes across the door, drops in. Everything's designed to be quickly removed. So again, if you needed to get out of this door quick, you just literally kick it away and obviously get out the door.
Yes.
You know, and I think having known about security and the levels of protection required, it's all about the delay and the deny and the deter, and you stop you becoming
the victim.
I think it's important that, you know, a bit of education and a bit of understanding where you're operating and knowing what the threat is and how to deal with it, you can operate a lot safer.
Yeah.
Having done 700 odd vessels now, you know, with 0 incidents over the years.
So before we get further into the maritime side, what was your background, even from before joining the army?
Okay, so my father had a engineering business, refrigeration. And when I was leaving school, I felt kind of destined. It was my duty to become part of the family business. Like I said, my dad was a refrigeration engineer, my granddad was a refrigeration engineer. So it was part of, you know, that's my path and that's the route I have to take. However, I always wanted to go to the army. That's what I fancied doing. Yeah. And it was always one of these things that I put on the side, and maybe one day, maybe I'll get an opportunity to. And so, yeah, I did refrigeration engineer as a trade. That's my background. And it was a good job, you know, hard work, good skills. You had to learn electrics, pipe work and diagnosis, because you also had to repair as well as install. And yeah, it was a really good job. I enjoyed it. And then I got to, how old would I be? I think I was 20, 21 when I decided to go for the reserve option. I thought I'd have best of both worlds.
Yes.
You know, my experience, I was very fit. I did a lot of martial arts, I did Muay Thai, and I did freestyle kickboxing in my youth. So
we're talking the late 80s now, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I was fairly fit. I swam at school, at the county level and all that type of stuff. So I'd always done sport. And I just felt like it was something I wanted to do. I'd watched the TV on, the series on TV, the Paras, back in the 80s. I finally got to work with some of these guys that were on it. They did selection and came part of the regiment.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh,
so,
cool. They were actually in the documentary.
Yeah. So, Yeah, small world, and it's weird how it comes about, but it does. I wanted to test myself at something. I always wanted to be in the army, fully committed to the business because of my dad and one thing and another, and support and loyalty. So it was best of both worlds. Not knowing anything really about the military, I was totally green.
Yeah.
I decided, oh, well, if I'm going to do anything, I might as well go for Special Air Service.
Yeah. So were you able to go straight to
So in the 80s, yeah, you could. And even until the mid-90s, it was possible to go straight from Civvy Street with no military experience into the regiment.
But also, I would imagine among the selection, the majority or a big part of them would have the military background.
Yes, they would.
The disadvantage.
Yeah, a massive disadvantage because, you know, it was learning a complete new language. All the acronyms and all this, like, I mean, it was literally, you were like, what the hell's going on day by day? It was a total shock to the system, but it was good. I enjoyed it. So I did selection in '88, and I was coming towards the end of my selection. I think at the time when we had endurance to do, in them days it was known as long drag.
Yeah.
And it was done over the Yorkshire Dales, and it was 1 week to go. I'd just done NavX 1 and 2, which was 2 of the exercises, the final test. I was involved in a car crash. The guy that was driving with me, he fell asleep at the wheel. I was already asleep, and I hit the dash. And basically, I smashed on my jaw and face and dislocated my shoulder, and I was in hospital intensive care. And I got out of intensive care. This happened on an Easter weekend. And I got out of intensive care with all my jaw wired, broken cheekbone and dislocated shoulder. It was pretty bad. I mean, on the day of the actual accident, my mum and dad had to come and identify me and say, you know, and they didn't recognise me. It was that bad.
Gosh.
On the Friday night, I reported for endurance for a long drag.
Oh, wow.
And they went, what are you doing here? Because my head was like, I was like John Merrick. You know, my head was twice the size.
Was it like bandaged? Or?
My jaw was broken and it was still swollen. And went up to Catterick where they all assembled, and the RSM went, no, you're not walking, and in fact, you're going to have to start right from the beginning on the next selection.
Oh, my God.
So, okay.
A summer one or a winter one, that one?
So that was a winter one, and I came back on the summer one.
Summer one, okay.
Yeah.
So was it completely separate, or was there a test week all with the regular?
No, so this was before that. This is before you went down to Hereford and down to the Beacons and did the test week, yeah. So it was before that. So you did localised training to begin. So we did like a lot of training in the Peak Districts, Snowdonia. Personally, having walked the Beacons, I think those ranges are more severe than the Beacons. I think the Beacons are more well-trodden. Yeah, I mean, like the Howgill Fells, where we met the other week, those are quite brutal.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And the severity of the up and down. So, you know, like I say, at the end of the day, I think it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're on the Beacons or if you're in the Howgill Fells or you're in Snowdonia. At the end of the day, it's down to your own determination and motivation that gets you through selection. The regiment is proud of and will always be is the standards that we set.
Yes. And
it will never alter from that. So.
And how long was the process? It was 89 then when you
89.
Passed in the end?
Yeah. I think I passed selection in early 1990. I think it was from memory. I started 89 and I finished 90. So because once you'd done your summer, you went on to continuation training, which then took another 6 months.
Yeah.
So the Hills phase was an eye-opener. I remember my first selection, it was brutal. From being a complete civvy, having to learn everything from cooking the rations, living on the rations, to bashering up. And it was different then because you would basher up generally at night outside. You would start Friday night, walk through the night, finish Saturday evening, and then you would basher up somewhere. If we're lucky, we've got a camp, and then you would be up Sparrows again to go and do an 8-mile Bergen run. So it was pretty full on. And I remember doing it, and there was a lot of ex-regulars, ex-Marines and paras and stuff like that. And just because they're that doesn't mean... And I think to be fair, with a lot of ex-regulars, it was like, I've been here before and I don't need this. I've had enough of this. This is not what I expected. There was a lot of guys who were of that impression. And it was what you found as selection. And I was probably, when I did selection first time, I was probably in the first group. You ended up 3 groups of people. You'd end up with groups of people who were completely green and had no idea what they're doing. And it'd be lucky if they passed selection. Then you had a group of guys in the middle that had generally served in the reserves or in the regulars, and they had the knowledge, but they might not unless they had the fitness. And then you had the guys that were just switched on. There was one guy I remember, it was called Kieran, unfortunately he's passed now, and he was super fit, just switched on. And you watch him when he got back from a tab, he'd be there straight away getting a brew on. And that was like, yeah, I can see what you've got to do to survive kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah,
so there was,
yeah.
but when you looked at it, you could see there was guys, and over through natural selection, these guys basically split into those three groups in a very short time. And you could see who was going to make it, who was hopefully going to get into the top group. But also in the top group, just because you were the ex-regular with the knowledge, didn't necessarily mean you were going to pass. It wasn't a golden ticket. It was just, you know, the way it was.
Did all the squadrons then, was it like Jan explained, part of the selection was actually at a squadron level, so the Scottish guys and Leeds and Manchester, and then you come together for certain...
Yeah, it's called centralised training. The initial, I think the first 5 weeks was localised, and that's why we would go to Snowdonia or we'd go to the Peak District. And then after that, you would then go to centralised training, and then everybody would kind of converge on a central as best as you could.
But 2-1 SAS kept separate.
2-1 was separate. Yeah, I think the only time I met up with those actually was on Long Drag, the final walk that you met up with those.
So they actually 2-1 and 2-3 did it together?
Yes.
But not 2-2?
No.
No, okay.
No. 2-2, until we got to the later version of selection where you went down and did test week, we didn't associate with 2-2 really. They did their thing and we did our thing, and that was the way it was. Yeah.
And then, of course, once you'd passed that sort of aptitude phase, whatever it was called at the time, as a novice to the army, your weapons handling was starting from zero. So continuation, I guess, was a really big filter still for you to get through there.
It was, and like I said, just because, I mean, selection, as you know, is divided into two phases. You've got the aptitude phase, where you're demonstrating you're fit enough to work with the regiment. And the second phase is they're looking to see if you've got the skills good enough to work with them. And that's basically what you're looking for. You're looking for the skills. And so it's a steep learning curve. It's difficult to...
Did you enjoy that continuation phase as well?
I enjoyed it all.
Okay.
You know, there's not one bit that you look back and go, I'd never do that again. You know, if you said tomorrow, would you do selection? Yes, I would.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just... It's character building, as they say, but definitely formed.
And from what you're saying, because obviously your job as refrigeration engineering at the time, because that sounds quite practical. Did that help, do you think?
Yeah. I think what it does, it hones your skills you might have already, if you've got those. And if you've got any organisational skills or mechanical kind of skills, so for like the weapon handling, you're used to working with your hands and that type of dexterity, then, it definitely helps. Also, what you find is that you bring other things to the party by having a civvy life, so you can contribute in other ways. And these lads in the regiment, especially in our squadron, who were joiners by trade. So anytime anything, we're in like a specific area and anything needed doing, we'll get that guy to do it. So,
that's a really interesting point. I'm Dutch, and when I was young, there was still conscription. So everyone, if you were fit enough, you had to. So you've got a mandatory medical, I think at 16 or 17. I passed that. So I was fully expecting to go, like everyone, just do my service. And then it was abolished. I can't remember the exact year. And I was actually a bit disappointed. So I thought I'll sign up for the reserves. But it wasn't Special Forces Reserves, just normal infantry reserves. But then everyone in the training staff were used to conscription army. And that was actually one of the things they said. Because I had thought, as a young man, this is probably better because everyone who's here wants to be here. And they said, whilst that's true, because all of a sudden you had to be a volunteer, whereas before people didn't want to be there. She goes, but that doesn't offset the fact that we've got a far greater skill set. Half of them didn't want to be there. He said, you got people in terms of skills and just bringing things to the party that would have never joined the army, and it was actually really useful. In their opinion, it was actually a step back. Conscription means you get a bigger skill set.
That's quite apparent on the courses I did with the regulars. What we did down at Hereford, you would go on the course, and because you were a civvy, obviously reservist, you had other skills outside of that, be it computer skills, administration, or whatever. When we were doing the courses and we were presenting, like I remember doing my DEMS course and my med course down there, and we'd done all these documents and all the notes, and it was all typed up and presented in this booklet. And I remember the DS getting these books, looking at us and going, because it was like, this is like a professional stand, not just mine. There was other guys, and we're all, we had one guy who was a draftsman, and he was able to draw such detailed drawings in his explanation of how to cut I-beams and this type of stuff. They were just blown away by the level of standard and the quality of the documentation that we could present. And that's like, say, something you do bring to the party outside, So it's good. And like say, you just become more organised and better disciplined, and it reflects both ways. It works both ways. Your civil life becomes more disciplined and more organised. You know?
You've answered one of the 3 questions that have actually been submitted to me by somebody who doesn't want his name used, but he's happy to be called Jay. Jay is a member of the Heart Routine channel. So anyone watching, there's a button below the video and you can join, and one of the perks you get is you can submit questions. He submitted 2 more. How important is strength training for people who are preparing for selection?
Okay, so what I would say is, as we always said to recruits, you need to be Bergen fit and boot fit. And really, you just need to get practicing walking in the hills. In between that, you need to do light training, I would say. Don't start running on the roads with Bergens, and, you know, because it just does your knees in and your ankles and your back. Selection is hard enough as it is without making it harder for yourself.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that fails people is their injuries. Most people who fail selection after the first cut is generally injuries that will cause the problem. So I would say strength training is, you know, I think swimming's a great thing, cycling's great because it builds the strength without any of the impact. And just walking in the hills, and I'm not saying go walking in the hills with 50, 60 pound on your back, just go with a day sack. Just get used to walking up and down hills and get used to the terrain, the unevenness, and get used to wearing boots and that type of thing. And I think they're more important than
being in the gym.
You know, I think, you need a good upper body strength, and if you get a good upper body strength, you stay more upright. If the ground's uneven and you're going to fall, if you've got good upper body strength, you'll stay on your feet. Generally, I found myself, I can't really, you know, very, very rarely would I ever fall over. Very rarely, even on night nagging, you would very rarely. You just got used to carrying the weight, and obviously your selection Bergen is a lot lighter than your actual squadron Bergen once you get in.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, it can be double easily. You know, the weight.
Then it's not about the weight, it's just what do I need. When I go wild camping, I think, oh, this is great. I don't have to take all the mandatory stuff, I just take what I need. I did this the other day and then I weighed it. I think this is 45 pounds. That's when I'm training only 35.
I think, like say, in selection, you've got to carry what you're told to carry.
55 then, right?
55, 55. So you've got to carry what you're instructed to carry. You can't make up with dead weight and that type of stuff. Everything has a purpose. But, you know, typical military kit, nothing's light. It's not like ultra packs.
The pack itself is already 2 kilos.
Everything's ridiculous in weight. And once you're on either training or on actual job or whatever, the weight just increases. It's just ridiculous. You know, generally on certain occasions you've had to sit on the floor just to get your arms in, then to get onto your knees to stand up. One guy in the squadron that we used to take the mick out of because he was small in size, but you know, I never put him off. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, you see, you can't judge the book by its cover.
No, indeed.
You know, we're all individuals, and it's that inner strength that you end up having. Selection takes you through your lowest, and at different times you'll be at your low and your mates will be at a different, and they'll pull you through. So you get to know your lows and how you feel when you do anything. Endurance training, you know, when you're going to hit the wall. Some people, when I do a lot of cycling, they go, "Oh, I never want to get to that point. I never want to get to bonking, as they call it in cycling. I never want to get to that point where I've cramped up and I'm at the end." And sometimes you need to know that point so you can see the signs and symptoms, and you can then prepare yourself ready for it and take the right hydration and the right food and that type of stuff. So I think it's important. When we did selection, it was more about, you had to use the issue kit. You got the issue rations. There was none of these protein bars and isotonic drinks. I mean, I used to make my own, which was, used to get an orange powder. We used to call it Screech. So you get the orange powder, I'd put fructose in it and make it into a sweeter drink. It was really sweet. But that was my idea of an isotonic drink at the time. I put a little bit of salt in it.
One more question from Jay. What is the oldest person you've ever seen pass selection?
I mean, unfortunately, he's passed away. So his name was John Chetwin.
Okay.
Toucans. Johnny Toucans, X-9 squadron. He was a big guy, but when he had a drink, he literally, his eyes just glazed over. It didn't matter if he had 10 drinks or two. When he got to 2 cans, he just glazed over. He was a proper character, but we were on one exercise and he got into a local dispute, shall we say.
Right.
And because of that, he basically got sacked from the regiment and he had to wait a period of time before he could come back. He was allowed to do selection again, and I'm sure John was 38 when he repassed.
What sort of year are we talking about then?
I would say late 90s, I think. Maybe 2000, something like that. But yeah, he was given the option to come back.
Had Nick already joined 2-3 because he was from my squadron, was he?
Yeah, you knew John. And there was also one of the guys who was one of the troop sergeants when I was in. He was ex-9 squadron as well. So there was a Duke who passed selection before me. He was ex-9 squadron. So yeah, so there was a good hardcore group of ex-9 squadron guys who was in the regiment.
You've been on the training team as well, you were saying, from from selection. Yeah. What sort of years were you doing that?
So I went on the training team, I think round about 92, and you do 2 years on the training team. I did it towards the end of my career within the in the regiment. So I went back on the second time as IC of the training team. You mentioned before about the number of guys that generally start. It depends. When I did selection, there was a high number of recruits. I think it was about 100. There was a lot, and there was only 5 of us passed, which is a good pass rate, really, 5. And then over the years, like I say, I think getting guys to start has always been a problem. Recruitment is a problem. You know, it's difficult because of the commitment, and also it's hard, which is how it should be. Yes. And that's always been the argument about lowering the standard. We need to keep the regiment going. Recruits are the lifeblood, but we're not lowering the standard. It's a disservice to the people that have gone before you. And we're going to lower the standard, therefore we're not going to be as good as we are. So why would we do that? Because it's character building. It moulds the person, definitely. You know, whilst we're all different, we've all got that self-determination, drive and motivation, self-discipline, and all those things that are required to pass selection. Yeah. And selection brings it out of you and makes you a better person. And by the early 90s,
did recruits already start doing test week with UKSF, or was it still separate?
No, still separate. And I don't think that came in really till 2000. Okay. Yeah, it was quite late on, really. Yeah, and again, it changed totally then because, like I say, they were going back to Senny Bridge at night, and you're getting up at a normal time, you're having breakfast. Yeah. So it changed it, which I'm not saying it made it any easier. It's just a different way of doing it now. I think selection's hard, and that's how it should be.
So when you were on the training team, and people line up for the first parade, are you bothered at all of trying to pick successful candidates from the start? I think that one will make it, or are you just not bothered?
No. So I think being DS is, you know, they are just recruits at the end of the day. You don't really pay much attention to them because, like I say, they've got to prove themselves. Yeah. They are just a number and a name, you know what I mean? And that's the way it is, really. It's only as they go through selection, you start to see the character and who they are. And within the first few weekends, you'd start to identify that the ones that would never pass because they're just clueless and they just do it to say they've done it. But as we always said, it's better to have turned up and failed than to have failed to have turned up. You know, so, you know, always be 5 minutes before the 5 minutes, have your kit packed correctly. You know, there's certain things that you do not to draw attention to yourself. Like, say, the switched on guys are doing, because they're easy to see straight away. You know, if you're there doing something wrong and you look around and you see some guys just sitting around, you see somebody packing his kit or making sure his pockets are closed, whatever it might be, you go, that's what I think I need to be doing that. You know, you soon identify, well, you do if you've got anything about you, soon identify the guys that you want to try and emulate. So the only thing I'd like to say, I think it's, you know, if you want to do selection, and I think if you've got that urge to do it, then you need to scratch the itch and have a go at it. Yes. You know, I think it's character building. Yeah. If it's the route you want to take, it's probably one of the best things that you'll ever do. You know, my time in the regiment, I loved every minute of it. Pretty much.
And you were in for over 20 years, right?
Yeah. So, it's challenging, and it constantly, you have to look at yourself and see what you're doing, and you're always setting yourself to that standard of people before, if you know what I mean. There's an expected standard of you, the way you've got to do things, and I think you're living on that kind of history and pedigree, and I think it's important. The British Army's got a fantastic reputation as globally, and we represent the country and everything that we stand for. So, I think if you want to challenge yourself, and you think you can do it, then have a go, because it's just good.
And it's skills that we're going to get through in a minute, and also in your case, you've absolutely taken forward to boost your business. But before we get into that, I've agreed with Wayne we're not going to go into anything to do with operations, right? We're not even going to talk about theatres or anything like that. So we're going to skip over that bit. And in terms of reflecting on your service, what aspect of your service are you sort of the proudest of?
Oh, that's a good one, that. Well, passing selection, where you see so many people on the start, and you know, when you're one of the only ones to pass. And that, I think, yeah, going through selection right up through the TQ phase and passing that, it develops you as a person all the way through. You've seen yourself at the lowest. And
TQ, tactical questioning.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, so that's right at the very end of the aptitude phase.
How long was the interrogation?
Was it aptitude phase or the end of the exercise? Well, it depends. How long is the
was it part of the SEER package or it was its own?
So this was before.
Okay.
Before that. So what you did is a 2-week battle camp, they called it, where they actually looked at your skills and actually a lot of drills, and they taught you other patrolling methods and one thing and another, and then you combined all those skills into an exercise at the end. And part of the exercise is you would be captured, and you would go through the interrogation phase, and that would be your final test at that stage. And like I say, after that you would then go on to continuation. It was interesting, it was good, and like I say, to know that you've gone through that, and everybody goes, yeah, it's only an exercise. It's the way they conduct it and the guards they use and the way they manoeuvre about, it's totally realistic, and it's good to go through that. It's a good life experience. So proudest moment, I'd say obviously passing selection, and just really working with the guys that you do. You know, we're all different, but all very much the same. And
many of you are still in touch, obviously, at the Wicked 9 event that you attended.
And it's funny because you literally pick up where you left off, but it's like you've never been away. And the camaraderie you've got with the guys. And I think that's what you miss most. We always used to say training's pretty much the same. You can only fire so many rounds down the range. But it was the guys that you work with, the personalities and the banter that you had. Very special people that you meet and work with. So, yeah, it's good.
Then, and we're now talking probably 2010-ish, the time came for you to transition out. Was there anything that prompted you, or did you just come to the end of...
Yeah, there was actually, So my father passed away. He had leukemia, and that was like the catalyst for me then to go and do what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So when would it be? Probably late September, early October 2010, and I was leaving the gym in Manchester where I've been a member since 1991, and I'm still there now. And I was leaving there one night, and one of the guys phoned me up, Watty. So if you're watching Watty, this is your fault. He phoned us up, and he was animated on the phone, and he was like, Wayne, you won't believe what happened. I said, what are you up to, Chris? Oh, fantastic. I've just come back off this Maritime Security stuff. He said, it's fantastic. He said, really, really great. He said, you need to get your CV in and get out on it. They're taking guys from the regiment. So I said, oh, right, okay. He said, yeah, honestly, he said, the pay's great, the weather's great, food's great, you go to some fantastic places, and the best thing is you never see a pirate. He said, he's fantastic. So I did. Within a few days, I put my CV in, and I got a phone call back from them, and they offered me a job just as a team member, not as a leader of one of the teams. I'd never done it before. I went out, they said, you'll get your instructions through soon on for a vessel, and off you go.
Is there a qualification that you went and got?
So those came later. What happened in the industry is they tried to regulate it. And what the industry did, they regulated themselves. So they marked their own work, which I don't agree with. All the courses that were being run by companies that were either already providing the labour and the manpower or were involved somehow. So
there's an incentive then to pass people, isn't there? Yeah.
So the courses became, later on, like I say, in the early days when I was doing it, it was, you know, a CV, military experience, and that was it. And then there were certain companies that were only taking guys on from certain regiments and stuff, so there was like a lot of companies that were just taking ex-Marines on, which makes sense because they've all got the same ethos and training set and all this type of stuff. And other companies were taking mixture of guys on, and the guy I worked for at the time, he was only taking on really guys from the regiment if he could. That was his pool.
Yeah.
And I think a few things really, in hindsight, there was a lot of guys were doing this because you had no legal ties to the regiment for commitment. Well, you did. You know, if you didn't do your commitment, you didn't get your bounty and this type of stuff. So guys were obviously seeing the money and going, well, I might as well earn a few extra quid. So there was like obviously a mass exodus of guys going out doing this. And I don't think there was the support from the regiment to say, look, we know why you're doing it. Why don't we look at offering you an FTRS, a semi-permanent role, or we can do this, or we'll give you a leave of absence for a certain period of time, or something like that. I think it got a bit messy. I don't think it was done quite right. Maybe it was, I don't know. But yeah, like I say, I went on and started doing the armed guarding.
And that became your full-time job then, I guess?
It did, yeah.
Because up until that point, were you still in refrigeration?
No, because my dad passed away.
Oh, of course.
All that side of the business, that was the opportunity to move on.
Yeah.
And basically finish with that episode in my life, or that chapter. And
so you went full-time?
Yeah.
You know.
This is something that I just fancied doing it. I had guys that were going out as private contractors that I knew that were going out to do jobs out in Libya and wherever it was, Afghan and Iraq and all these, like, they were coming back with horrific stories. They were only finding out under contact that some of the guys we were alleged were, you know, professional soldiers were actually like, you know, a storeman, or they were just a cook or whatever it was. They were hiding behind vehicles when they were getting shot at, rather than taking the command position they were claiming to be. So I never fancied that, and obviously the advantage over the Maritime Security was you literally got, it was like a slow car chase. You know, if the skiff was on the horizon, it was going to take them 30 minutes or whatever. Yes. So you knew you were going to get attacked, if you know what I mean.
Yes. And of course that is very much the strength of your Special Forces background.
Yeah. So, you know, you only know when an IED goes off. When an attack is instigated by them attacking you, you can see them that far off.
So that's interesting. So you've always got, what, 25, 30 minutes then to get...
You should have. If you do the things, the basic things, if you've got a good watch and you know where you're operating, so therefore you should be aware that there's a potential risk, and you should already be prepared for that case.
Yeah. So just for those people watching that are less familiar with the high-risk areas that you operated in, so you operated in the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, the Indian Ocean. Can you explain what sort of risks ships are facing there and the nature of the dangers?
2010, the risk was from the Somalian pirates. Right. Their USP was to take the vessel and the crew. And we was told that it was due
to take them hostage, or
take the vessel and the crew, everything, and then they would anchor it off the coast of Somalia, and then the negotiations would take place. A ransom would be paid for the release of the vessel and the crew. We was told because the government in Somalia really going to control Mogadishu, so all the other areas were controlled by warlords, and therefore there was no clear path of negotiation and control. So they had to deal directly with the pirates. Negotiations would take place, and the vessel would be released, and the crew would be released. But it was quite obviously horrific for the crews to go through. Bear in mind, they're only there to deliver a product from A to B, and next minute, you know, they're getting shot at, and they keep them on the vessel as well. They don't take them ashore, generally.
Yes.
They keep them on the vessel because...
You then have to feed them. It becomes a whole logistical challenge. Whereas on the ship, they've got everything.
They have. Yeah, and hopefully there's enough rations to last. But I've got pictures where the Somalians brought goats on and they would eat, you know, obviously butcher the goats and that. And they were just a mess.
So in terms of the build-up to these, I guess, deployments or jobs, so how big would a typical team be, and would you literally be introduced on the ship, or would you have time to do any sort of work-up?
So it's a four-man team. Generally it was a four-man team. And in the early days it was a British four-man team. Because
so on what, eh?
British.
Okay.
Because they were willing to pay for British operator. As the price wars came in, it would be one British operator and 3 foreign nationals. Right. And they would water down, obviously. And that brought its own problems along with it. But in the early days, I'd say right up to about 2013, maybe, there was still a lot of British operators doing it because the pay was okay. It started to come down, but you would generally find British operators. And as I said earlier, you know, the British Army, you know, world leaders, we are good at what we do. So, you know, that's what people wanted to pay for, and that was the reputation we had. I think, so it was a four-man team. The very first transit I did was an unarmed transit, because only months later, really into 2013, agreements were signed with all the countries that bordered the Indian Ocean, and weapon systems were allowed to be stored or moved in and out of these countries. So at the time, I can't remember, because we went from Mozambique to Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and I don't know if we couldn't get weapons in Mozambique, or we couldn't take weapons into Dar es Salaam. It was one of the ways, and either way it would have caused a problem for the vessel. So we weren't allowed to take weapons, or we couldn't get them. So we had to do an unarmed transit, just as purely security advisors.
Right.
So the first time I met the guys was down at Heathrow Airport. I knew the names because of the joint instructions, and that was it. So I met up with the guys at Heathrow Airport, and we all flew out through Heathrow. And on this particular transit, there was a guy called John, who's an ex-bootneck, an ex-Marine. and he was the team leader. Many years' experience in maritime security, so he was dipping his toe back in just to do a refresher for himself, to make sure he was up to speed with everything. And then there's another young lad called Mark. He was an ex-bootneck as well. And there was a submariner called Ben. And there's myself. So, you know, a good spread. I think Ben and John were a similar age. They were a bit older than us. Mark was younger than me, and I was obviously in the middle somewhere. So we had a good spread of experience and age, and we got on straight away. And it was good. It was just like being in the army. You know, everybody knew everybody. The banter was starting. Everybody starts taking the mick out of each other, and it just knocks down any barriers there. So we flew out of Heathrow, and again, because of my military training and because how we operated, comms was always vitally important. So we would have more sets that you can shake a stick at, and there was sets for redundancy. So if one failed, you had another means of communication. So I'd say that was one of the things that I realised was important. And not knowing what was available on the vessel, I purchased a sat phone and I took a satellite phone with me, believing that at least I can have comms, and if anything goes wrong... And
that was your personal property?
Yeah. So I had that with me. We had some ops kit that was given to us by the company. They met us at Heathrow and they give us a load of bags of laptops and binos and one thing and another. Anyway, they were all packaged up. We all went all checked in, and we flew into an airport in northern Mozambique first as the entrance. And it was literally like a dusty airfield. It was quite comical, really. It was like, is this as good as it gets? So we had to get off the plane and we had to do our passports. So we literally came off the plane and they started taking all the luggage off. So, well, that's a bit odd. So he gets to this terminal and they check your passport, stamp it. You basically do a U-turn and come straight back onto the plane. So I said to John, there's our luggage there. He went, yeah, mate, that's our luggage. It's going back on, innit? Oh, yeah, don't worry about it. It's going back on. You'll get it in Beira. Okay, then. So we get to Beira and the luggage wasn't there. Everything was stolen.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Including your sat phone?
So luckily my sat phone was in my grip, my hand luggage that I had with me. So we actually literally had nothing apart from the clothes. Luckily the vessel wasn't calling it for a few days. So we went back to the airport the next day to see if it had turned up. Nothing had turned up. Had to fill in all the forms. Yeah, we'll check it all out. And hopefully it turns up. Anyway, we had to then go to a local bazaar and buy some counterfeit Ralph Lauren chinos and polo tops and this type of stuff. So at least I had some clothes. So the company paid for some clothes for us. And then we had to join the vessel. So the captain was aware of this. Luckily I had my phone, still had a full charge. And then we boarded the vessel and it was a small chemical carrier. It had like a freeboard of just over 2 metres. It was quite a small vessel. I was expecting a massive, again, not knowing vessels, I was expecting something, wow, big tanker. And it was like, seems a bit small.
How many people, how many crew?
So the crew size doesn't really change on the size of the vessel because you need a certain amount of crew to manage the operations that are needed done. So they all have about 20 to 22 crew on board. On your tankers and your bulkers and that type of stuff. So, I think there was 22 crew on board this vessel. And like I say, we boarded the vessel, met with the captain, and that was it. We started doing our audits. Well, John did his audit and took us round and showed what to look for and explained the idea of the principle of securing multiple doors and entrances and making sure. And we reviewed their anti-piracy drill, and it was a bit shoddy, shall we say. So we moved their muster point to a safer area where you had ballistic protection. And that was it. Then we went outside and started razor wiring the whole of the main deck. So we literally razor wired, with the help of the crew, spent a couple of days razor.
And you'd sourced this?
That was purchased through the chandler locally, so that was brought on board the vessel. They'd purchased extra steel. They always have loads of steel and plate on board, so they'd had that. And they'd fabricated some bits of security measures for certain doors. And we reviewed it, secured some extra doors with some other bits and bobs. And that was it, really. We then drilled and trained the crew and the anti-piracy drill, making sure that everybody knew where their positions were, making sure that we'd locked everything down, making sure that when we finally closed the engine room door, that we knew how to put the plate on and it's secured.
Were they professional? Like, were they happy to do the drills and work with you guys?
Yeah, because the horror stories that had gone previous, crews were getting kidnapped and it was a terrible situation they were being put under. But I know during that early period of time, there was at least 1 or 2 crew died through just ill health, through mistreatment. So, and like I say, they weren't treated the best. They were starved, rationed on food and one thing and another. So it wasn't a good life they were leading while they were obviously captive. So they were more than willing to do whatever we said.
Yeah.
So, we practiced the drills. Still in the back of mind, you never see a pirate, so nothing to worry about. So, so we drilled and prepared the crew. The vessel was all secured. We were happy with what we were doing. And then we basically, once we set sail, we shut down into our routine, and we'd have 2 people on at all times, and we'd rotate through our own watches to make sure that we were providing watch. The vessel provided watch as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, the ABs, their ability to spot something on the water, because their job, I mean, they just...
ABs, so what does that mean?
Able seamen, isn't it?
Oh, okay, able seamen, got you, yeah.
They're able to spot a threat at any distance. I mean, it's a 360 battle space that you're now looking at, because the threat could come from any direction.
Could the threat come at night, or would they not do that in the night?
Not at that time, no. And I think really, pretty much, unless you've got robberies which happen in Singapore Straits, they happen under cover of darkness. But
it's harder for them at night as well,
exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous as it is, especially the vessels that they try to board. If you've got something with a 5-10 metre freeboard and then you're trying to climb on board during the night, then it's a difficult manoeuvre. So they generally do it during the day. At the time, all pirate attacks were daylight attacks. They would normally do what most military doctrine tells you, that early morning and late evening, sunrise, sunset are the best times to attack, and that would be the window of opportunity that they would use. The lights subdued and a bit more difficult to spot movement and shape.
Very much like a military adversary in the early hours.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and like I say, that's what you're preparing for. And also because they don't know how long the attack we're going to take, so if they leave it too late in the afternoon, then they've got to try and still board the vessel or still take the vessel, and so they're running out of daylight hours to do their job, so they will try and use maximum daylight to do what they need to do. So on this particular vessel, Sitchem Pandora, it was actually the name of the vessel, Chem Pandora, and it was the original HRA, high risk area, covered everything from 10 degrees south on the Indian Ocean, really up into, including the Persian Gulf as well, even right up to the Red Sea in the early days. Back then it was as far south as 10 degrees south, level with the top of Madagascar, shall we say. So we were crossing 10 degrees south, entering into the high-risk area. We literally just crossed over. And I was just finishing my watch early in the morning, so I think it was like 7, 8 o'clock I finished my watch. And the AB went, "Oh, Mr. Wayne, there's a skiff on our port side." He's like looking out, and I went, "Is it?" He went, yeah. And I'm like, I couldn't see it. I'm not that I was blind as a bat, but I just couldn't see the shape. He said, look. So I got the binoculars and I looked through and went, "Oh yeah, there is, isn't there?" And it was literally coming towards us on our port side.
Did you see how many people were on board?
No, it was too far out. It was literally straight on profile, so you could see the skiff, and it was coming straight towards like a torpedo. And you were like, wow, okay. So we sounded the general alarm, called John up, team leader. He came up, went, "Yeah, it's definitely coming towards us. Right, let's get everybody mustered." So we mustered everybody, and I went out onto the bridge. By this point, they were probably about 400 metres out. We'd mustered all the crew ready to go into the citadel. Everybody was accounted for. Everything was locked down.
But you've got no weapons.
No weapons. So I went out onto the bridge wing and I fired the flare, which was the drill. That's what you're told to do. Fire, because the other thing you're supposed to do, if the vessel is capable, you're supposed to do a 5-degree manoeuvre to see if they're pursuing you. Well, they were coming straight at us side on, and also because the vessel did like 10, 11 knots, if we took a 5-degree manoeuvre, it would scrub too much speed off, which means they would attack us even quicker. They're even quicker. So we just kept steaming.
Is the flare also to alert? No, because you're alerting the emergency services.
So at the same time, captain's on the.
But is the purpose of the flare to let them know you've seen them?
Yes. It's to let them know you've been seen. Look, we're already locking down. Go somewhere else. Yeah. That's the idea. But we were the only vessel there. There was nothing else around us, and we were about 120 miles off the coast. I fired the flare. It has to be aimed in the general direction so they can see it above their heads. So they must have seen it, and all of a sudden they started shooting at us. So the rounds started hitting.
So they thought you were probably. It was like firing at them.
They started firing at us. It's all about shock and awe.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do is obviously.
And then what sort of weapons? These are. What are AK-47?
AK-47s, they would have been, yeah. I mean,
is that the heaviest, or would they carry...
No, generally it's the most common weapon system that they would use. It's most available, so that's what they would have. West Africa's slightly different. They have a better array of weapon systems. But generally, the Somalians, it was they had RPG. And there has been RPG attacks on our particular vessel. There were on the skiff. There was no RPG that we saw. They only had AKs, but they were firing at us. You could hear rounds hitting all over the superstructure and also on the main deck. Obviously, John shouted us in. We came in and we locked down the bridge. We locked down the door. We smoked out the bridge as well. We had some smoke flares, so we smoked the bridge out just to make it more difficult for them with orange smoke distress flares. So we had a couple of steel bins, so we popped them in.
So this is a scenario you had effectively specifically drilled for?
Yes.
In training?
We might go through the drill of popping smoke, put it in the bin, and then carry on the drill, not actually, obviously, activating it. So, yeah, and to be honest, we just knew where they were and the location of this flare. We locked down the bridge, the stairwell on the bridge. So if you can imagine like a small apartment block, there's a stairwell that runs down the centre, and there's obviously multiple floors. And each floor leads onto that stairwell. So your stairwell's like your spinal column of the vessel, if you know what I mean. It's where everything leads from and to. So we locked that door, and the doors on each deck, we had some kind of piece of wood under the door and stuff like that. So we were able to move down the stairwell. As we got down to the stairwell, we were straight into the engine room. Ben was already there ready to greet us. As we went through, we pushed all the crew into the engine control room, the ECR, which was their main citadel area. The whole of the funnel engine casing and the funnel casing was classed as the citadel, but for administration and control of the crew, they all stayed in the ECR because it had air conditioning there, so it wasn't hot and sweaty, and it's where the toilet was and that type of stuff, where they had the rations. So we pushed them all in, make sure they're out of the way. We locked down the stairwell door, so it's just a standard fire door, internal door, and we had a big plate that we put on the back and we bolted it all down. We pushed all the crew back. Listen. So from getting to from where the pirates was, where they started shooting at us, where they opened up on us, to they were probably about 300-400 metres out. We then moved down to the engine room. Took us 5 minutes to get down there, lock up, and we're like, they're going to be hours getting through the razor wire.
Yes.
Everything had razor wire on it.
And at this point, you've obviously done Mayday call, well, whatever the call is.
Yes.
And how long was the expectation until any sort of support would be able to help? And what shape would the support take? Local governments?
You don't know.
No, you don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone.
It's not British Marine Commandos, is it?
No. There was a United Nations naval operation that worked out in the Indian Ocean. But the example we were given, it's like giving one policeman the whole of New York State to police.
I see.
I mean, it was.
So you had no idea whether that was going to be 12 hours or 2 or at all? Okay.
Yeah. Even if it was 10 minutes or 2 days, you just didn't know. And you were literally just waiting. So the Mayday goes out, Mayday, pirate attack, hoping somebody's going to pick it up. You hit the stress button, it says alert, we've been attacked. And that was it. Then we were already on our way down, locking down and moving down into the engine room. We kept steaming ahead on the known course because we were doing 10 knots. And we're also 125 miles off the nearest coastline. No other vessels near us. The Mayday pirate attack informs people to give you a wide berth, so that vessels would know where you was and they would avoid you. By this time, we're already in the engine room locked down and we don't know what's going on in the outside world. So I got down into we all got down into the engine room, pushed all the crew away. Within a few minutes, you could hear them shooting, trying to get through the bridge door.
And if in minutes?
In minutes, yeah. And we were like, oh, shit, that was quick.
How did they get through the razor wire?
Yeah, because we'd razor wired right up to the nav deck, and we were like, they must have cut themselves to pieces. How did they get past it? It's not a massive big vessel, but you've still got 3 or 4 floors above the main deck they had to climb or get through. And we're like, Jesus, that's quick. I'm like, that's worrying now, because we've got one door between us and them, not knowing.
Did you ever find out how they got through so quickly?
We did eventually. After the event, we were interested how they managed to get up there so quick. And the only thing that we saw was on the top rail around the nav deck, there were some scratch marks, like they'd obviously thrown a line up and climbed themselves up the side of the vessel. That's all we could find. So we assumed that's how they did it. Razor wires are pretty ineffective method anyway. It's more of a show and tell. It's showing that you've done something. Look, we've got razor wire. Go to that vessel because they've not got razor wire. It's quite ineffective because it's easy to defeat. The easiest way, you just have a hook with a bucket if you're alongside, throw the hook onto the razor wire, drop the bucket in the water, and it'll just literally drag the razor wire off.
I see. Okay.
And you also got human error because when you first put the razor wire out, you'd put seizing wire every 50 centimetres, and then when you're doing an STS operation, a ship-to-ship transfer, you go, all right, we've got to take it off both sides, oh, you've got to put it back out again later, and then tomorrow we'll only put one every 2 meters or whatever it is.
I see.
So human error then kicks in. Instead of thinking, we need to do this 50 centimetres every time.
Yeah.
They won't go, oh, no, well, we know it's coming off tomorrow, so we'll only do it every 2 meters or whatever it will be. You just get lazy just because of the fact they're busy. And they are busy. So razor wire, it's not really effective.
But now you're in there, you hear shooting, they're trying to get through. The first door, they've got 2 door barriers between you and the pirates.
Yes.
And they're trying to shoot
through the first door on the navigation deck. We were like, wow, that was quick. That was too quick.
Yeah.
We thought at least we're going to get some delay, and we got no delay, 0. We're like, wow, that is frightening too quick. So, like I say, I had my sat phone. I'd already tested it to make sure I could get a signal. The only way I could get a signal was going up into the funnel casing. I said to John and the captain, I'll have to phone back to our office. The only number we had was our operations office. I had the last known position, and that's what I needed to give them the information. So up the funnel casing I went. Now the funnel casing is a vertical ladder with a number of platforms, and at the very top of the funnel casing there's a small hatch, and through the funnel casing there's ventilation because it's very hot, 40, 50 degrees in there with all the exhaust fumes and all, the exhaust heat, and so there's these louvers, and I could see through the louvers as I was going up. I could see the pirates walking around the nav deck, and on the deck below you could see them walking around. I could see the skiff tied off on the rear port quarter. So I knew they were all, they were about. Okay, yeah, we know what's happening now. So we know they're on board. I could see about 3 or 4 of these guys. They shot all the windows out on the navigation deck for some strange reason. They smashed the small window and got their hand in and opened it. When we were securing these doors down, I was taking the mick out of John being an ex-bootneck, because everything's got a knot, they tie knots on everything. So I said to him, he said, what we'll do is we'll tie these clasps off here and we'll tie it off on the door. I said, well, just smash the glass and cut it. I said, you bootnecks not half of a good knot and all this type of stuff, and messing with rope. So I had a bit of banter about that. After the event, that was the door they got in, because they smashed it. They just cut the rope and got in. So yeah, we got a bit of a laugh and a joke about it. So they were on the nav deck. They're walking around, obviously looking for the ways in. I'm right up to the funnel casing, gets to the top of the funnel casing, puts my antenna out, and I'm on the phone. I'm on this vertical ladder. I'm looking down about 25, 30 metres below me. I'm on this ladder on the inside. And I phones, and this lady answered the phone, Jenny, who's in the ops office. She said, hello? And I went, hiya, Jenny, it's Wayne. She said, oh, hiya, Wayne, you all right? I went, yeah, I'm good. She said, oh, I didn't know you had a sat phone. So have you got my number there? She said, yeah. I said, good. I said, we've got pirates on board. She went, fuck, you what? You what? I said, hey, calm down. I said, we're the ones with the pirates. You know we're unarmed and we need some help. Yeah. I said, we're all accounted for, we're in the Citadel, but we need some assistance. This is our last known position. This is our heading. She said, give me 5 minutes. So then she gets off the phone. She phones UKMTO, which is this coalition force, phones me back. She says, right, there's a naval vessel en route to your last known location. It's 60 nautical miles of your location. It'll be there in about 2 hours. Okay. They're putting a helicopter up, helo up in the next 5-10 minutes. That's en route to you. That should be there within the hour.
What nation was the Navy from?
I think it was Dutch.
Okay.
I think it was Dutch. I'm sure it was Dutch, but like I say,
I've had Dutch Marines on board.
Well, you would have thought so, but they didn't.
Oh, didn't they?
No.
Okay.
So when they finally turned up, so obviously I went back down, told the captain, look, and told John, Kenzie was on the naval forces en route. There's a vessel en route, 60 nautical miles north of our position. Helo's going to be in the air in the next 5-10 minutes. Well, the captain said, right, we need to get somebody in the funnel casing with the VHF set so we can communicate with the helicopter. Okay, yeah, good idea. So we took it in turns to stag on in the funnel casing. We took extra water up there and we were on this platform inside and try to get, so we could communicate with the helo. Ben managed to make comms with the helicopter, and they just said, obviously, sit tight. We monitored the location, and me and the captain saw the skiff going on our stack. So the helo, you've got obviously the sound signature, which is you can hear from a long distance. Yeah. We believe that the pirates believed in that. They thought they were going to get captured, or they thought,
might start shooting.
They got back in the skiff and they went, but we didn't know if all of them went at the time. At first we thought there was only 3 or 4, but like I say, on the actual approach we could see at least 7 inside the skiff. We didn't know if all 7 had gone, or if they'd left some hiding, thinking that we were safe and we can now come out type stuff. So we informed the helo that we saw the skiff going, but we're not too sure if they've all gone. The naval vessel finally turned up. That then patrolled round and monitored our load.
But from where you were, could you actually see it?
All we could see was through the louvers on the funnel case. You could see the stern of the vessel towards the accommodation block.
Right, so you knew it was there, but you couldn't necessarily see the Navy vessel.
And so we knew that the naval vessel was there, because we're now on comms with them. We're now speaking to them through the VHF. And I think it's after about 5 hours. You know, we're now obviously now in routine in the Citadel. So we had the chief cook cooking some rice and eggs. So he started to feed everybody, get them into a routine, take their mind off what's going on. You know, obviously they're physically upset at what's going on. We were manning the funnel casing. We also knew that there was access points in through the funnel casing, should they still be on board. So we're monitoring those as well, so that if it happened, we could then fall back to other positions and secure ourselves without being captured. There was the rumour at the time also that any ex-British soldiers, if you were captured by the Somalians, you would be sold on to Al-Shabaab. That was the rumour.
Yeah.
So, not that we were macho about. It's not like you see in the films. We just agreed that wasn't going to happen. And that was it. That's all we said. So, exactly what that meant and what we were going to do, you know. That's just the way it was.
Yeah.
So it wasn't macho, no gung-ho type thing. It was just, well, you know, not ending up in an orange jumpsuit kind of thing. So it was that was it. It was about a 30-second
Because Al-Shabaab, are they affiliated with extremists, you know, the Al-Qaedas and stuff like that?
Yeah. That was the rumour. It was a good enough incentive.
Well, and it's because the Brits don't tend to pay ransom, right? So then extremists will pay money for their political means.
Yeah. So, you know, it was a good enough incentive not to get caught. Yeah. So that's what we believed, and that's what we stuck with. So captain was on the phone, on the radio to the vessel going, look, 5 hours have now passed. When are you going to come on board and liberate us out of the Citadel? We're all accounted for. You know we're unarmed, we've got no weapons, but we don't know if any of the pirates have gone. And the conversation went something like, well, we've been monitoring the situation and we've not seen anybody moving around the main deck or around any of the decks. So we've assumed they've all gone, so just come out. So we're like, the captain said, well, what if we come out, what happens then? What about if they are waiting for us and they capture us? He said, we'll escort you to Somalia. Then the ransom negotiation will take place, and, you know, that's it. So we had the conversation. I went, well, that ain't going to happen. You know, we can't just open the door. So I said to Mark, Mark, I said, you've done room clearances back at the mob, haven't you? You know what to do and all this, like, back at yeah. I said, right, the British Army's great at rehearsing. We practice everything. You go through your rehearsals and this type of stuff. So we went away, practiced room clearances with no weapons or nothing. That went bang. So you're literally doing it with just shouting and the head torch. So we decided, like, yeah, okay, because you have to know which way the door opens, who's going to be on the side of the door, opening side, who's going to go in first, who's going to go left, who's going to go right, that type of stuff. So we practiced that. And I went back and I told John, I said, look, John, I said, I realised we're going to have to clear all the cabins now and all the decks to make sure it's safe for us to come out. I said, me and Mark will do the room clearances. He said, if you'll just watch our 6 on the corridors. And John went, yeah, too right, I will. Yeah, of course. I said, Ben, you can stay here. We had a no-duff password. If we got compromised and captured and we're banging on the other side of the door, we'd have the password and they would then know. So the captain's like, you're unarmed, you've got no weapons. We were getting shot at, you know, only hours ago. We're in this tool store in the engineer's tool room, like, and there's all these tools on the wall. So you're looking for, like, the biggest, heaviest bar or whatever. And the captain's like, well, you need weapons, you need something. And he was, like, really getting a bit agitated about it. And we're going, yeah, it's all right, sir. So I'm looking, and he pulled off the tool board, he pulled the junior hacksaw off. He said, here you go, Wayne, take that with you. I went, fucking hell, sir, what am I going to do? I'm not going to cut his fingernails. What cave his skull in? I said, that's useless. I said, yeah. So I just took a big spanner. I said, I'll be all right. I said, I've got this big spanner. I've got a bag full of aggression and a few swear words. We'll be fine. And that was it. Off we went. Me and Mark cleared all the cabins. You have to clear, obviously, the toilets and all this lot in each of the cabin spaces. There's lockers on each deck for equipment and that type. You have to clear everything. And we got to the navigation deck and they'd gone.
Thank God.
Yeah. So we finally got there and they'd gone. But at that point, you didn't know until we finally got to the navigation. They'd gone.
It is obviously very odd that a Navy, so, you know, that they're not, because they would have had weapons.
Yeah.
And even sailors, a sailor with a weapon is still better than somebody.
Yeah, well, that was it. The captain said to me, are you not coming on board to liberate us? He said, no, we do not have the means or the capability to board your vessel. So just come out. So, yeah, so we got to the navigation deck. They'd gone. And then we did a sweep outside just to make sure. And I went back to the navigation deck and then we went down to the engine room, knocked on the door and opened it up and that was it. Then we had to check the vessel, make sure everything was safe and nothing was damaged, and that was it. And we carried on our merry way to Dar es Salaam.
Wow, that was a very close call, because even if there hadn't been a helicopter and Navy ship, which could have easily happened, you would have been taken hostage sooner or later, right?
If they thought they had enough time, then they might have used the time more to obviously try and breach the only other doors that was there. I think the helicopter spooked them enough that they went, we didn't know that.
But was the helicopter, you're effectively a captive, right? Because they've still got the ship, they can still get ransom, even if they can't get to you. They've got you there, trapped. That sounds like a lot of lessons learned.
I think it got easier after that. That was the only time I ever did it unarmed.
And what are the chances they actually got bored at that time? So you were saying that's not the only time you've been attacked, is that right?
No. 2010 to 13, there was a lot of pirate attacks happening. You know, it was a busy period. Well, especially up to 2012, it was a busy period. You know, you'd be out at sea and you'd be, especially as you're coming into the Gulf of Aden area, you'd be hearing, you know, Mayday, Mayday, pirate attack all the time on Channel 16. It was quite busy. I was on a bulk carrier and we were going towards Suez, so we were entering into the Gulf of Aden from like the Persian Gulf side, and we were going up through there. And I said to the captain at the time, because you had to go through it was called the IRTC, International Recognised Transit Corridor. So what they were trying to do was send vessels through in groups, so you could register on this convoy, and you would have a naval vessel generally at the forward of the pack of vessels, whatever it was. But you'd have to go at the slowest vessel. If you could do, you know, 15 knots through there, but there was a bulk that we could do, you had to go through at 10 knots. You had to go at the slowest speed. And also you had to wait. So if you got there early, you'd have to hang around in the high-risk area waiting for a convoy to start, to join it. And I said, I wouldn't wait. I'd just go through, you know, let's go now while we've got time and we'll be okay. And at this time we were now armed, you know, we had weapon systems. And
so four of you?
Four of us.
Four of you, yeah.
All guys from the regiment, all guys from my squadron. So, yeah, it was...
M4s or the C6?
On that vessel, I think they were like an AK derivative from memory. It depends on what was available. We did get M4s, we did have SLRs, and there was always an AK variant. Oh, we also had Browning bar matches, which were a decent weapon system as well. I think towards the end, on one of the companies we had M4s, but generally on that vessel there were an AK variant type weapon system. So being with the guys from the squadron, you were completely comfortable and safe knowing that these guys' skills were all spot on and you'd have no issues should anything happen. So we were approaching, I think it's Point Bravo from memory, where the vessels were starting to rendezvous to go through as a group of vessels. And we had to hang around this area because we were there too early, so we were just going around in circles, basically waiting. And on the way up, there were loads of pirate attacks happening. Mayday, Mayday all the time. And therefore, you were in the catchment area because there's a radio transmitted up to about 60 nautical miles. They advised you when you got the message through saying a pirate attack's happening in this location here, give it 100 miles. Well, we were already in the thick of it because we were obviously receiving the Mayday from whichever vessel was being pirated. So you're like, well, we can't move out of it because we're already in it. And so we had to hang around. And we knew there was a pirate group operating in that area. So you obviously got your eyes, you got your ABs out there watching. Everybody's looking for any suspicious craft, using the radar. Generally, the radar won't pick anything up because they're too small and they won't pick them up. But you're still looking anyway. And we were looking on the radar and we picked a vessel that was about 10 miles off from our location. And when you pinged it, it's the CPA, which is basically how close it is to your rendezvous in your angle, was virtually zero. So their route was colliding with our route, which means it was going to intercept us. So you're like, well, if it was a normal vessel, they would know their CPA was too low and therefore they would alter course. I said to the chief mate, just alter your course, chief, that vessel's too low. It was like nearly zero, whatever it was. So we altered course and it basically was like ghosting us. It was like following us from a distance. So that's odd. So anyway, we marked it on the radar because it was big enough to mark on the radar.
Right.
So we could track it. So we were monitoring it and it got a bit closer, then it moved out again, but it was always just out of visibility or actual seeing
They
on the
wouldn't have radar, would they?
No, I don't think so.
So they're all sort of eyeballing it.
So they were just on the, I guess because it was a smaller vessel, they could see us from the horizon, or whatever distance they were at, and we couldn't see them.
Easier to you than vice versa.
So again, I can't remember the size, and I can't really remember the exact distance, but I knew we were able to track him, but we couldn't see them. So it's coming towards lunchtime. Next guy came up, handed over, told them that we spotted this vessel. Just watch it. It's obviously acting a bit peculiar. Everybody's aware that it's there. So went down and had my lunch. Came back up after lunch. Not that I was on watch, but I just went back up. Any movement on the vessel? They went, oh yeah, it's acting really peculiar now. It's now on our port side now, and it's only 3 miles off. That's a bit odd, isn't it? So we're watching it on the radar, and sure enough, its speed dropped lower and lower. Went, that's odd. And then it dropped to virtually zero, to like standing still, and we went, right, it's either, I don't know, putting nets in the water, perhaps it's a fishing boat putting nets in the water, or it's putting the guys in the skiff to come and attack us. We don't know. So just stand by. So we knew where it was. It's bearing to our location, it's heading. So we just literally watched everybody was on the bridge, and sure enough, within minutes, we could then start to see it on the horizon coming towards us. So, captain being a very experienced captain, all he kept doing was denying the lee side. So as they were coming in, we were putting the rough water in their way, so they'd have to come round and try and get back on a good side of us. So he was doing that. Everybody was aware of what was going on. The chief engineer, he was scared because his wife had been complaining to him. He had a good job in an office and you've gone back to sea. So every time he phoned home to speak to her, she wouldn't speak to him. Literally like an empty phone, like he was like, hello, hi, how are you? Okay, I'll speak to you tomorrow. And he was just totally blanking him because she was that annoyed with him.
Yeah.
So he was like worried because obviously his missus is not happy with him. Next minute there's a skiff approaching. He's like, oh God, I made the wrong decision. Captain's like,
rolled the dice.
Yeah, it's like, can you not get rid of him? Like, you need to get him out, because he was like, stressing the captain out. So I said, Chief, I need your help. Oh right, what do you want? I said, they might have RPG on board. I said, in theory, they could start using it from 1,000 metres out. So we need to know at least 1,000 metres from where they are to our location, if you can. He went, oh, you're joking. He said, I'm going to have to convert that because we're only in nautical miles, and I'm going to have to do a conversion. Well, it's going to take me some time. I said, no worries. I said, can you do that? Yeah, of course I can. I said, but I need every 100 metres. Can you work it out? Yeah, no problem. So that kept him busy.
And actually, question, when there is an emergency, do you take control or work closely with the captain?
Work closely with the captain.
Charge.
Yeah, it's his shout at the end of the day. Whatever he says, he goes, you have to ask for fire control, to allow to fire. You can't just take over and do a turkey shoot. It's literally down to the captain. And again, that professionalism, how you manage the situation is important. So the captain looked at me, thanks for that. Kept him quiet now. So then I was in the doorway, the other 3 guys were on the bridge wings, and the skiff's obviously coming towards us. And I briefed the guys up and I said, look, when it gets to 400 metres, one of us is going to start to prepare to fire the warning shot. There's a rules for the use of force, it was called in the maritime industry, rules escalation, and how you proceed through that escalation. So, it's an aim shot above them, then it's an aim shot at the skiff, and then if you see weapons, then it's an aim shot at the person holding the weapon. Then you're allowed to use lethal means, but apart from that, they're there for a reason, those rules, So we were there on the bridge wing, I'm in the doorway, the vessel, the skiff's about 600-700 metres off still. The chief engineer, he's giving me the order, oh, it's 800 metres now, cheers chief, thanks very much, like, you know what I mean, and they get the guys like that, So I said to the guys, I said, because now by this time it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If we're not careful, we're going to miss the evening meal. It's going to impact on us getting the evening meal. And they went, yeah, you're right, isn't it? So I said, well, that's not very good, is it? I said, I think I'm going to have a word with the captain, see if he can get some sandwiches for us. Do you want some sandwiches? Oh, yeah, I'll get some Stims, some Cokes and orange. Yeah, that'd be great. So I went into the captain and said, Chief Cook, just to make us some sandwiches and get some cold cans and stuff. He went, yeah, why? So, well, I explained, it's going to be nearly evening meal when they're actually attacking us. So it'd be good if we get some food in. Now he went, yeah, all right then. It kind of totally de-escalated the situation, took all the pressure out of it. And he went, yeah, okay then. Yeah, if that's all right. And I went, well, we've got loads of time.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, we need to eat. And he went, Yeah, okay then. So it totally de-escalated the problem. So we're on the bridge wings, obviously still watching the threat, eating sandwiches, and I mean, it totally took the pressure off it, because the crew saw us taking it a bit more, I won't say easy, we're still aware of what we were doing, but it took the pressure out.
I don't think a job is it's about managing emotions.
You've got to show that you're in control and not be hysterical. We were all totally calm and switched on. Everything was just like a normal day at the office.
Sound, because you may have to do without food for prolonged periods. It's actually a good idea to get some fuel more.
Yeah. So, it was funny, and they saw us kind of, we've got a bit of time to relax kind of thing. Anyway, so we had our sandwiches, and then they got a bit closer, and I told one of the guys, Stuart, I said, right, you're the number one on the gun. Obviously, you will fire the first shot. I said, when they get within 300 metres, you're able to take the first warning shot. And they got within about 400 metres, and they came literally on our stern. And as they got onto the stern, we're on it with our binos looking at them. We could see the ladders. You could see them ready with weapons. And we thought, right, here we go. It's getting close now. And they must have had binos. And then they looked at us and they must have went, oh, shit, they've got weapons. And they just literally turned around and went. So they didn't get any closer. That was it. So they saw us with weapons. They saw us obviously looking at them with weapons. And they must have seen us and went, oh.
And you didn't even have to take a warning shot then?
No.
Okay,
no.
Brilliant.
So... And that's the thing, you see. You got all these guys going, oh, yeah, can't wait to shoot these and do this. And, and you're like, just walters, just idiots.
It's much more nuanced than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're actually able to prevent people getting wounded just by the right sequence.
So it is. It's all about those layers of defences and you like say, you're actually spotting the threat to start with, doing your evasive manoeuvres, showing you've got weapon systems. There's so many things you have to do before you have to pull that trigger.
Yes.
And I think that's important,
Managing people, normal crew members or a cook, they haven't been selected, they haven't signed up for that, so you need to manage that.
Exactly. It's vitally important, but as we know, or as I did with the guys that I was with, I know that we could deliver the minimum amount of effort to neutralise the threat if required. It's not like there's a famous one called the AVO set, and it still regurgitates even today. People still put it on LinkedIn and on Facebook and all this type of stuff. This is how pirates should be treated, and it's an American team who basically neutralised this threat. Yes, it was a threat, but there were so many things they should have done to start with, and they didn't do.
Yes.
And even when the skiff smashed into the side of the vessel, they're over the side, still firing rounds into it like it was a turkey shoot. And then when it's on the weight of the vessel and it's just drifting, they're still firing at it. And it was just, to me, it was totally unprofessional. I mean, you only had to look at the faller's shot when they were first aiming at the skiff. They were literally pepper potting all around it. There was, more rounds were missing it than were hitting it. It was just totally inaccurate.
Yeah, it means probably adrenaline's going and they're not actually doing a controlled response.
No.
They're wasting ammo for one.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there could be a second skiff.
Yeah. Well, it came out on that. I mean, at the end, when you've got time, you should just watch it. Yeah. And at the end, they're all doing an ammo state. And he goes, yeah, I've used 3 magazines. I had 2 magazines. Yeah, I used... So they're all using between 60 and 90 rounds per man on one skiff. It was just totally unnecessary, total waste of ammunition and inappropriate use of force.
Yes.
So, that's just one example. That was early on in the maritime security industry. That was quite an early attack.
So a lot of hijackings happening or boardings happening, and so there was a lot of demand for people. People flooded into that industry. That had an effect on the money as well, didn't it?
Yeah, we were literally getting guys going on a transit, doing a 2-week transit, looking how the company did it and go, I'm going to set my own company up doing this. Because at the time, you didn't need any special licenses. You could just buy weapons locally, or you could buy them through certain companies and get them delivered out to the vessels. There was certain armories that were starting to operate out of Sri Lanka and places like that, government ones, not backstreet ones. So it was starting to be legalised in certain ways, and it became very easy for small operators to get into the industry quite quickly. Then there was a requirement for guys, and then the guys that would go in, and then they lowered the prices because then there was 1,000,001 PMSC companies out there, and then everybody started dropping the prices, and then they said, then the Brits had stopped working because it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So they started employing foreign nationals to get the price even lower. And I think nowadays, so when I was doing the transits, an average 2-week transit was about $70,000. Now you can get the same thing for about $12,000.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. Yeah, you're not going to get the same quality of staff.
Unfortunately, you know, and the problem that you've got within the industry is you've got people who are, so the industry still vets itself, still self-polices and marks its own homework, and they set these firearms courses and competency courses and this type of stuff. So, you know, they don't do live firing on the vessels no more, and very few of them, I can't say all, but very few of them will actually use the weapons on board the vessel. As you know, when you get a new weapon, or even if it's your weapon you had on the previous vessel, bring it to the side of the vessel, it could have got knocked, the sights could have been damaged, the operating system could have been, anything could have happened. So you need to make sure it goes through its cyclic operation and it's zero to the operator.
Yes.
And a lot of these companies now won't do that for one of embarrassment, because they probably couldn't hit a barn door with a spade, or they don't know how to use the weapon system, and they want to conserve the ammunition because it's become too expensive. Oh. So you're deploying these guys, break glass in case of emergency, and you've not even tested the system to make sure it works correctly. I just did one for a large Middle East national carrier the other day, an audit, a remote audit. So I went round with the master, started on the navigation deck. They had a security team on board, and to be fair, they looked like a Western security team. I don't know what company they were, but they might have been Polish or whatever, but they were Western European team. And so there's one on the nav deck, he's there looking out, and the captain's going around with his camera talking to me about what security provisions they got in place. And I went, are those, they have 50-gallon drums on the bridge wings. I said, are those drums filled with water or with sand or concrete or anything like that, Captain? He went, oh, they're filled with water. I said, OK, I'll send you a video shortly to demonstrate how they're not effective. So within minutes, I sent a video of a range practice in the UK. I think it's actually done down in Brecon or Senny Bridge. And it shows you a guy firing a 50-gallon drum filled with water from everything from a 9mm through to a 50 cal, and the effects it has on it. And everyone obviously punctured it. Yeah. Everyone let the water run out of it, so therefore you're just left with a plastic barrel. I said, they're providing you no ballistic protection.
Yes.
They will provide you zero. You at least need to put damp sand in it if you're going to use the barrel. Or you need to put concrete, sand and cement, and put concrete, and that's the better option. Or something like that. I said, but a barrel just filled full of water is a waste of time.
Tells you something about the quality of the security team.
Exactly. I said, how many teams have you had aboard this vessel who are going to use those as fire positions to allegedly to provide them cover while they engage the threat? I said, if it's one team too many, because somebody should have picked that up as part of their own duty of care for their own team. Never mind anybody else. You know. I said, so it's not good. And that was within 30 seconds of doing the audit with it. And like I said, not that I'm anti-private security teams, I'm not, because that's where I started my journey in from on this type of thing. But at least I was working with reputable operators who knew the job and knew what to do, and were good at what their job was, which was to obviously identify weaknesses in the vessel security and train and use weapons correctly.
So what you're telling me, it's for those people who are a seaman in those areas, life has become more dangerous there because the quality of the security is really gone.
It has, but unfortunately, the owners still believe that they're paying for your top quality operator.
Yeah.
I can't say all, because I'm not involved with the security teams, but I do know there's a lot of companies out there paying not a lot of money for operators who aren't doing the job correctly. And the people that are employing these companies are using the security team's own certification to make sure they're up to standard. So they don't know until they actually need to engage a target if they're going to be able to, 1, fire the weapon, 2, does the weapon work, and 3, will it hit the correct target? Yeah. You're not going to know.
Yeah, so there should really be regulation. I mean, in an ideal world, even if they're self-policing, they should have certain rules in place, right?
You'll have vessels. I did once, a short story, I did one time, I did an audit for Maersk tankers. They had a British team, 4 British guys. This was about 13 it would be. And I went on board the vessel, met the team. Nice guys, working for a British company, and the captain was already aware why I was there, because I was there to audit the team and also the quality of any security measures already in place. So I briefed the captain. I said, what I'm looking for is they're being deployed on board this vessel to make sure that they can deliver a lethal means if and when required. So obviously it's important that their skill set is of a high standard. He was a young captain as well, which was quite unusual, really keen. So anyway, came on board. Captain's like, are you going to do a test fire? He said, no worries, sir. He said, don't worry. He said, if there's a skiff at 1,000 metres, you've got an RPG, I'm taking him out. I went, Captain looked at me, and I looked at him, I went, really? I said, what, are you going to do a test fire? Don't need to do one. Well, sure you need to do a test fire, because have you just picked these weapons up out of the army? Yeah. Well, you have to do a test fire to make sure it's operating correctly, it's going through cycle operation, that obviously the user, it's zero to the user, so you can at least bore sight the weapon system. I guess you're going to test fire it to make sure everything's okay and that you're confident in the operator. We can do if you want us to, but the company doesn't like us doing them normally, or whatever it was. So the captain said, don't worry about it, I'll speak to your company, you will do a test fire for me. Right, so I said, oh, very good. So we had some party balloons. So when they were doing this test fire, they were using SLRs from memory. So they wanted to fire from the bridge wing to replicate where they would actually engage the target from. Okay, that's fine. To me, I would have done it from the stern, right on the aft of the vessel, because then there's nothing between you and the target that you were using. But we had to then make sure that it was a safe area, everybody was behind or inside while we're doing the test fire. So the captain's like, so what we're going to do is we're going to have 5 rounds each, and they're going to have 3 balloons. So hopefully they should hit all 3 balloons, but if not, they'll use the first balloon to zero the weapon in. So you can do what's called equal and opposite. So whatever the target is, if you're firing high right, you fire low left and bring the rounds on. So hopefully we'll spot for them and we'll see where the rounds will fall. But they should see the fall of the shot unless they're miles off. So they should have already bore sighted the weapons. So they should be at least pretty much on target. So anyway, come the day of the race when they were going to test fire, there's 4 of them, so they all fired 20 rounds. They had 3 balloons each, and only 1 balloon was hit. And the captain was like, he was livid. He was like, I can't believe this. I've been employing these guys for this long. They've told me they can hit a target. They can't even hit a balloon at 25 metres past the stern. But also, it's a skill you have to keep training. And to check that it's still zero. You get skill fade. It's an important skill that you have to keep training, because it can take life. So it's got to be done correctly.
On which point, how do you, for people who have sort of multiple weeks, how do people keep fit? Okay, you run around, and people doing push-ups.
Again, you would just
sit on your ass for a month.
You would use your downtime. You would do. People took skipping ropes, or like you say, they would. Most vessels had a gym. You'd have running treadmill type things. You'd go on those, and we'd do test type stuff, and you would do anything just to keep fit. And again, it was one of these things that you do to show self-discipline and self-motivation, even though you've just done your watch. I'm going to go and do my training. And they always used to say, oh, you guys always do your training. Yeah. Half the time you didn't feel like doing it, but you still did it. It's because it was important that you kept that self-discipline.
I see it in daily life. The moment you start slipping, even for a week, you have to get back on. Right? When you're really good for a week, you just feel better. And then, of course, you transitioned into what you do today, which is you start developing these solutions. So in terms of your business growing, I would imagine you are doing better now than, or was the heyday so good that was hard to top in terms of what the business was earning?
So it's even though it's involved in the same line of business, it's totally different. So, now, unfortunately, the default setting is still doing, because it's not mandatory. That's the first thing. So they're not required.
So you're selling a nice to have, not a must have.
So I work with a lot of owners who take it serious and look after their safety.
And are you also there for the salesperson? You're the one pitching it to them effectively. And I'm in sales myself, I can sympathise.
It's difficult because they don't really need to spend the money. And then you're there trying to say, well, if you don't have this on board, this is the consequences, and this what can happen, and
So within these companies, you're speaking to risk people, security.
So each company has what's called a company security officer. So it's normally those. It can also be the technical department, operations. And the problem is that some of these people don't even go to sea. So you're trying to put an idea across to them where they've not been at sea, or if they have been at sea, it was a long time ago. And they're not really aware of the problem, so I'm not really that bothered. Some of them take it very seriously and will do whatever they can. Unfortunately, a lot of them won't, because they don't want to rock the apple cart. They'll do, if the industry doesn't say you need it, then we don't do nothing about it. We'll just keep our heads down.
It's competitive, isn't it? I mean, it's cost and the competition for it.
It is difficult.
But all in all, you said your material is on how many ships did you say?
730.
So you've done well, and you continue to do well. I mean,
there's 90,000 vessels on the water.
Oh wow!
So there's a long way to
go after.
And they're not all transiting high-risk areas. So that's the other thing. I mean, high-risk areas now, you've got South America, Gulf of Guinea, Indian Ocean, Red Sea, obviously with the Houthi, what's going on there. So you've got Straits of Singapore, Malacca Straits. So you've still got some high-risk areas, but owners just run the risk.
Right.
And that's what they do.
Yeah.
Because it's a numbers game. And that's the challenge I've got. Yeah, I've got a $50-80 million vessel, or possibly more. Your bigger vessels are 100 million, whatever. I mean, I did some, what they call them now, FSPOs, which are floating oil platforms. And they were 600 million, I think, massive contracts.
Yeah.
But they put equipment on board because they saw the requirement for it. For the cost of the investment of my equipment, which is sub 20k for a full set, for a full vessel, it's a low cost investment.
Wow, yeah, absolutely.
Compared
God knows what they're paying in insurance.
Well, it's loss of trade. A vessel's loss of trade for one day.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, it could be anything from $20,000 up to $200,000 a day, just in loss of trade, quite easily. Loss of reputation, obviously loss of life if some of the crew die, which has happened in West Africa.
Yeah.
Crews have died, either been attacked or taken ashore, because that's the model out in Nigeria. They just take crew and hide them on land and hold them for ransom. It's a dangerous environment, and because it's not mandatory, some owners don't decide to do it, and then it's carrying $100 million plus of stock or cargo. They have tools, and they have paint, and they have lube oils and all these type of stuff, and they have lots of it. To people, it's worth a lot of money. You can stop becoming the victim, by locking these areas down. And I believe that in certain ports, this information is passed back to the pirates, the robbers. They will then say, don't bother with that vessel. It's well protected. They've got all the drills swept up. They know how to escort people. They know they're locking down. They know they're operating in a bit of an austere environment. Don't bother. Go to that other vessel over there.
Okay.
And I do believe that information is passed back.
Yes.
I can't confirm it for definite, but I do believe that in certain parts of the world, corruption and working hand in hand. And like in West Africa, the terminologies used by the pirates is of a military terminology. They're already maybe serving naval personnel, using their military skills to go and make a few extra pounds on the side. So, but again, these are only rumours and believed, so I can't confirm it's definite. But yeah, I can understand why, if you've got this floating gold mine going past and they're not really locking it down, well, I might as well help myself, and some do. Yeah. So
you're coming up to, I guess it's 35 years, more than 35 years in security related, well, obviously from the military and then this. So how have your experiences shaped the person you are today, these last 35 years?
Yeah, it definitely makes you the person you are today.
Yeah.
You're definitely more, I'm definitely more self-disciplined. You're definitely more motivated. I'm totally anal about everything. Everything has a place. Everything has to be put away somewhere. Organisation. Yeah, there's been good times, there's been bad times. We've lost friends through campaigns, and they're still remembered. And it's still upsetting that today, really, And like I say, as we're getting older, it just shows you how fragile life is, really. So, but it definitely shaped me. I like to hope it shaped me into a better person.
Yeah.
I like to think that I've made a mark and I've helped people. That's what you hope, really.
Well, I mean, service for 21 years is one thing, and then obviously you're now contributing to the safety of crews, making life harder for the bad guys, whatever you want to call it. And I think you've said some great things about young people looking at a career in the military, for instance.
Yeah, the military, for me, has been an important part of my life, my adult life. I don't regret any part of it. I've loved every minute of it. Obviously, it's been tough times and happy times and sad times and loads of laughter along the way. So it's been good. And I'd like to say, the courses and everything that you do shape you into a more organised, disciplined, knowing your own capabilities. Nothing will ever that will do. It's not, that will never do. You either do it correctly, or you don't do it at all. Yeah. And I think that's important. It's been good. I've enjoyed it.
Brilliant. It's been a real journey.
Hopefully it's been of an interest. Like I say, obviously it's interesting to me because I do this day in, day out, and I love my job.
Yes.
And I love what I do because I know I'm helping people. But, you know, it's something that a lot of people in the West won't appreciate, because then we don't really have many seafarers being put in the line of danger. Unfortunately, it's the Philippines and the Indians who take the brunt of it. You know, just the fact that I've helped people to get home to the families and that type of stuff, it gives a lot of value added to the job.
And it's a big part of British history, the whole maritime, you've got your navy, obviously the seafaring, the business. You could argue the wealth of Britain was built on the maritime industry, the same as the Netherlands, actually, with trade over many centuries and the East India Company. Yeah, no, very, very interesting. Well, thanks very much, Wayne.
Thank you.
Awesome, really, really good. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that. If you're not a member yet, there's a join button at the bottom of the screen, which means you join the Hard Routine Cadre, which means you can submit questions ahead of podcasts, interviews, and more importantly, by joining up, you are supporting the channel. Every penny is reinvested straight back into the channel to bring you the content you enjoy. Massive thanks to Wayne for his cooperation. As always, see you in the hills.